This is the best version, I think. Anyway, hello, welcome to the AOS Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to the Age of Sigmar Monday show, the 11th version of this Monday show. It's me, Rob, the host of the show, and joined by James Powell. If you'd listened to previous versions of this show, which I will not repeat, oh no, I've still got the voices on. I'll change the voices. Sorry, no voices. This just wants to make me smile. Sound is whack. The sound was intentional.
Yeah, when you were like, which one shall I use? I was like, let's give him that one because everyone will think we've busted the internet before we've started.
Please back away from the stream. Rob is a salty bitch today. That's my police announcement one. Sound is. Grinaldi. Thanks for donating some. Thanks for donating a gift subscription to Ben Clapperton in the chat. That's great of you. All right, so me and James are here today, and we are going to talk about GHB points, and maybe we'll talk about the Super Series. I apologise to everyone about earlier. Some days it's not your day, and when it's not James's day, he walks by a quarry, and it's not my day. Actually, painting chills me out quite a lot, James. I've always found painting really therapeutic. Have you ever done that?
Yeah. I think I think that's one of the reasons I ended up getting back into the hobby. So at the time, I didn't really have much disposable income, and I brought an old set of Space Hulk that I'd never bothered to paint. So that's what got me back into the hobby, really. Sit painting, chilling out, good for your headspace. I think, yeah, super for that one.
Yeah, I think it's honestly really, really good for those things. All right, we're going to dive straight in GHB, and then maybe we'll talk about the Super Series. GHB, we're not going to talk about it in great detail because obviously we're expecting a day one dump of PDFs from Games Workshop. I'm expecting rules updates. I'm expecting points changes, so some significant things. Now, obviously, some of that might not happen because with no tournaments, a lot of people say that Games Workshop use tournaments as their beta test to work out what things need changing. If that's true,
that's how they knew Slanesh needed changing.
6 months later, yeah.
They were like, "Oh, they've been winning for 6 months. We better do something about that."
Yeah, so I don't really adhere to that point of view, but because I think it's a bit disingenuous. But some people think that's the case. Fine. So we can expect that. So think about that. But there are some things we can definitely talk about, and then we will talk about some point changes we may or may not have seen. Oh my God, the podcast guys won't get to hear about the whole conspiracy part, which I thought was good. Anyway. We'll save that for another show. So hello Tom, big love to you. So let's talk about the things we do know. James, endless spells.
Yes.
0 to 3 endless spells. That's been confirmed via a couple of sources. We did talk about this as being a rumor. How do you feel, Twitch chat? I'm going to ask a lot of questions of you, Twitch chat, today. How do you feel about 0 to 3 endless spells?
Me or the Twitch chat?
Well, you first, James, but obviously I'm asking you.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because actually, I've played a couple of lists that maybe had 5 or 6 in. I think it was really interesting. I think it brought different levels to the game that 1 or 2 doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's weird. It's weird that that's a decision they made to try and balance the game, whereas actually I think it was very rare you saw more than 3. How many lists have you ever played that had more than 3? Whereas actually I think the few times Nick Thompson once had one with 6 in. It was really interesting. I played it.
It's fairly common. It's fairly common. Like me and Nathan talked about long time ago, before even the Gits book was even a thing. We talked about the kind of endless spell spam list because we were talking about fungoids. So that was a show we did years ago. And then since then, we've seen all sorts of people put all sorts of endless spells. We saw Darren at the LGT, Little Chris, Zinch Mike, um, um, the wonderful Mick Wendell doing it at Six Nations. We've seen it time and time again, and normally in an incredibly abusive way. Sometimes the endless spells were obviously used to do damage or to do the actual effects, and sometimes they were just used to physically block stuff in. So
Yep.
old change host, even new change host to a degree, would be using all those endless spells to do that. And then also there were like Gits lists where there are a lot of pluses to cast, so they were doing a lot of endless spells. It's a bit of a bonus, obviously, against those damned frogmen, because now they can only have 3 bound endless spells. But I'm hoping we see a significant points increase for bound endless spells, because a bound endless spell at the minute, James, if you're aware, only costs you an extra 10 points, which is
Yep.
bonkers. Have you played against bound endless spells yet? Have you been on
No, no.
it sucks. Imagine Geminids, only you can never control it, and it will go wherever they want.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the worst. So Trog in the chat saying I used 5 at Bobo, and a lot of people saying that they think that it's okay. Love it. Plus, removing multiple realm spells may curb the emerging meta. Says paranormal whatever. I think he's talking about the increase in high level intense casters, Nagash, Croak, Lords of Change to a degree, I guess, and of course Techless. Can I take 2 Stormcaster 10 Eternal Endless spells with Bioencanto whilst having 3 FS prayers, Fire Slayer prayers? Oh, that's a good question, actually. I think Endless spells is probably going to be relating to anything that's an endless spell, but endless spell, but maybe not. Maybe Judgments might get to scapegoat out of it, which would be super cool. And a kind
Where do they sit on the War Scroll builder though? It's in endless spells, right?
It's in endless spells. I think that
Yeah.
that's. I don't think that they'll escape it. But it is interesting because those aren't endless spells. Those are judgments. They've been quite clear to describe them as not endless spells, and they don't work in the same way that endless spells work almost all the time as well.
But nor do bound endless spells.
That's also true as well.
I think for me, like they're in that section of the like if you go on War Scroll Builder or Azir, like they're under endless spell, aren't they? The same as like a Cygor is under Behemoth. Like same thing, I would say.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, and I do understand your point. But I think it's a good, positive change. A lot of times, the conversation comes up is, do we need more rules? And I think there's definitely a good conversation about rules bloat, but we could always do with rules more structure, structure, right? And go on.
So interestingly, I had a game of 9th edition 40k this week, but one of the things I thought was most interesting was I went and downloaded that new the free rules, the core rules they gave away, and I thought it was really interesting to see that they'd included in that the rule about dice, which I thought was really interesting.
What's the rule?
So it's not next to me, but there's basically a thing that's like, when is a dice cocked? And it basically talks you through their opinion. So it's like, if you both agree that a dice that might be cocked is a 6, fine. But what we would say is that the best way to solve this is, if you can't agree, you get another dice, you put it on top. If it sits, it's on the face. If it won't sit on top, then you re-roll it. And I just thought it's kind of nice, because you know that at some point somewhere everyone's probably had someone be funny about their dice roll, and although it's another thing to read, actually at that point you're just like, cool, here's the rule on it. Way better.
I mean, I think that's nice, definitely. How's that relate to the endless spell thing, do you think? More rules is good.
It's more rules, and then therefore it's clearer, isn't it? I think.
Okay, yeah, more strategy. Yeah, my thing has always been, I tell my opponent at the start, and I always say I'm going to roll on the flat. If it lands in scenery, I'm always going to re-roll it. Because it's very, very, very hard for dice to cock on a mat, like super hard. Whereas on terrain or anywhere near terrain, sometimes they can be an issue. So I always specify that as I start a game. which is always really important to bring up, I think. Yeah. Well, okay, more rules is good. So I think the 0 to 3 endless spells is a positive. I do think that means that they could maybe relook at the points of some of those endless spells as well. But as we were saying on the show earlier, some of those points changes are boggling my mind. Especially when we've seen the Skaven Warp Lightning Vortexes come down in points, which doesn't make any sense. Come down 20 points, which is still pretty much an auto take for 100 points. So coming down to 80 points is just wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rebel says, I asked my opponent, what do you think? And then I shame their answer. That's also a tactic too. That's also a tactic. Yeah, definitely. I always ask them while rubbing my nipples vigorously. I'm just like, is that cocked? What do you think? But normally they don't say. But yeah, so we've seen some points leaks. And we could talk about those in a moment. So I like this change. I think it's a positive change. I think it makes loads of sense. I think that the magic-heavy armies only got bonuses from being able to also select endless spells.
Yep.
And I think Zeitguy, 13 inches from 26. I don't know what your point was. Like, Zeitguy, I promise you, babe, like, it doesn't matter. It's still bonkers for 80 points, that spell. The fact that you have to do anything to get it to happen, like as in move, or just wait a turn, does not mean like it's worse. It should never have been 100 points for 26 inches. If it was at like what it was, it should be like 300 fucking points. Like they could keep the old rat trap, yeah, for like maybe 350, maybe that. Just keep that. But what it was bananas. That's all I got to say. Anyway. So 0 to 3 endless spells, great change. Really excited to see that. I think it's going to make people choose what endless spells they're going to take. And they weren't often taking many anyway, unless they were specifically designing around using them as movement blockers after a certain amount. So I think that's good. And then the other thing we've seen is no 5+ laughs in KO. Love you too, that guy. We've also seen that no DPR saves, no 5-up DPR. Oh, sorry, no extra DPR saves. So you can't have your Disgusting Resilience and also your 6 or 5-up for being in Legion of Chaos Ascendant.
Yep.
Which is a change we talked about a lot on the show that we thought was coming. It makes it the same as what they've done in 40k, and I think that's good. What do you think? And Twitch chat, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just nicer, isn't it? So I've read a bit of this rule, but I didn't go into great detail. So I'm going to ask you the question, and you're going to answer.
Okay.
So is it the same as 40k, where I choose my DPR save or my actual save, or do I get my actual save and then my DPR save?
Your actual save and then DPR save. So it's your actual
So I
save,
get
your armor save.
2 saves max.
No, there's never talk about it like that. Like, let's use specific terms. You get your armor save always, unless you don't get your armor save, and then you get 1 after damage save of some type. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's it. And if you have more than 1 available, then you choose which one you want.
Which is always going to be the best one.
Unless you're just feeling risky.
Yeah, unless you're like, I roll all 6s. Oh, damn it.
Yeah, and Grenadi is pointing out it is not an armor save. It is just a war scroll. So it's your war scroll save, the one that's written on. Yeah. So sometimes it isn't armor, which is a bit awkward. Which is which is why having the shield from Marauders gives them +1 save. It's not necessarily their armor save, but it's their cumulative. I like to think of it as armor save anyway. That's what I've always thought. So Proposition Joseph asks, why stop at DPRs? Why not just say max +1 to hit to save or neg to hit to save? Actually, I don't know. I don't mind there being some stacking of abilities. I think command ability stacking is crazy, but if you've got an ability that gives someone +1 save and then they throw them in cover, like if you don't allow that to stack, then you're causing a problem with like how valid that +1 to save ability is. But also, cover is normally a tactical challenge on the tabletop, and it's not something you can guarantee. You can't necessarily be near cover. Lord Win, thanks for subscribing, you babe, for 29 months. Whoa! So I think so. I know that Prop Joe is saying in the chat that he thinks there should be some limitations to it, but I actually like stacking because normally you have to do a lot of things to make some stacks happen, which I think is cool.
Yep.
And I'm into it. Though I think they should have some keywords for stuff like this. It's quite awkward. Say if you have a rules that say X, then you can use only one of them. Yeah, I would say that's fair as well. Being able to just use a key term or a universal special rule for what is an after damage save. Obviously on the show we call it a DPR, so a damage prevention roll, which is just covers all those terms up. So that'd be cool. That'd be cool if we had that. But I like the change. I think it's a big positive. I don't think anyone was being particularly abusive with it, but I think it cleans the game up for later on.
I think also there was all those complicated things, wasn't there? So where you're like, right, so first I roll my disgustingly resilient, so it's a 5, and then I roll the Chaos Ascendant one, which is a 6, and then I've got, the one from the Harbinger of Decay, so I'll roll that sort of thing. So I think for me, like, it cleans up loads of that, and it cleans up, like, I guess the worst one will be if you're a Fire Slayers player.
No,
and
they
you
don't.
just lost a load.
Well, they haven't got multiple. I guess also it depends on the wording as well. Maybe I should have read that before the show. But I think I still think if you did something like ignore spells on a 4-up, you would still get your DPR save after.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's different. But Fire Slayers don't get one and then another oftentimes. I feel like it was dealing with Legion of Chaos Ascendant and, like everyone in the chat saying, just kind of neatening it up, making it a bit speedier. I'm going to do this one thing. That's fine. Like I think actually it's cool, but not overly one I give a shit about, if I'm honest with you. So I'm happy with that. What's the worst current example? I would say the worst current example is probably Vermin Lords in Legion of Chaos Ascendant. So you can have a Vermin Lord that's a 4-up ethereal re-rollable save with a 5-up DPR, which is probably the most nascent example I can think of. Yes, Legions of Nagash can stack several death saves with artifacts, but normally it's like a 5-up, 6-up, then another 6-up, so that generally tends to be the case. So yeah, anyway. Okay.
Ace? I just think it's just cleaner, isn't it? Like, there comes a point, I think, like, did we debate? I debated, I think, with someone the other day, just like, if you go back to the core rules, like, so many times that rule of 1 that was like everything can only be done once has been slowly eroded, hasn't it, by all the rules that we've obtained over the years. So I think it was time for the rules to be cleaned up a little bit. I think that's one of them. So yeah.
Yes. Also, someone's pointing out that maybe Nagash also has got the potential to do that as well, especially when you put him in when you put him in Ocean Bone Reapers, because there's a spell in there like Protection Nagash, which effectively makes him basically immortal if you include that 5-up save plus his 4-up save.
Yep.
So that maybe it was put in for that as well. So yeah, he had a 4-up, 5-up, 6-up. So that's what he had. Grinaldi's talking about an anointed on Frostart Phoenix or on a Flame Spire Phoenix, plus a Luminarch, some Feel No Pain artifacts. So you could also do that as well, because they have a 4-up base. So if you can add anything onto them, whether it be a Luminarch or a 5-up, that adds obviously bonus points on, and it's really, really good. Maybe with the GHB 20, we're all playtesting things for AOS 3. Maybe. I think that could definitely be. That could be a thing. So that's the other change. So we saw that. And then, so we saw that's change 1, that's change 2. So those are core changes. And we also know that realm artifacts are going away as well. So that'll be your ethereal amulets and your...
Never will we see an ethereal Stonehorn again.
Aether Quartz Brooch. Yes. I know, we are the playtesters. Wait, do we have to ban ourselves from our own tournaments? I'm so confused now if we're the playtesters. Yeah, so how do you feel about losing realm artifacts, James?
Just great. Don't care.
Okay. Well,
I just think they saw their time. Like, at the point that they brought those in, there was loads of old armies that didn't have new books that actually really benefited from the ability to take artifacts that were decent. And I think now there's probably no armies left that haven't had a book with artifacts,
Well,
etc.
yeah, they don't necessarily have good artifacts though. Like
Yeah,
that's
but
key.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? So actually, what would be nice to see is a new edition, remove those, make it cleaner, and then look at those books that are weaker and start to develop those so the armies are more balanced. But I just think they the problem with the round ones, in my opinion, was that although they benefited some of the weaker armies or armies with worse artifacts, they also gave the ability to take those to the strong armies. So it made it, well, it just imbalanced it still, didn't it? I think.
Well, I think so as well. I think so. T-Man Cash says less choice is great? Question mark. So I think maybe he'd like to talk about that a little bit. Maybe we'll see an update to Malign Sorcery. That could happen as well. Everchosen has no artifacts. I think that's good. I think it allows. I agree with Malekith in chat. I think it actually allows more scope for design, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then also we've got the realm artifacts that are going to be available from the realms if people play in the realms, which are the new realms available in the GHP, which normally have one command ability, one artifact, one spell. So I think some of those things are going to be important. So the conversation about there being less choice is really interesting. I think what you said, James, is good, because if you're looking at having less choice, really you're talking about having units that were good getting better and units that were bad becoming good. So,
Yeah.
I don't, and I think also if you take away the ability for armies to go to a separate source to get better, you're then doing points. So, like when you change the points on a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, and you were like, that guy can be ethereal, you're also thinking about the fact that you were changing points on a Maw Crusher, and that guy could be ethereal. And you're like, they're kind of the same, but they're quite different as well. So where should the points lie? They're inside their own book. But knowing that both of them can be ethereal means that you also have to point them. I don't think they ever did point them with that in mind. But now that's taken out, and it's just like, what can they do in their book? That's it. That's the only conversation. And I think that is a better design space, because then they go, okay, we've caused a problem here in this book, or this is an issue, or those. So I actually think it's a great change personally, but I know that Vince Vancella from One Weekly thinks it isn't, and he's coming on the show on Thursday to tell me why, which is going to be very interesting. I won't miss facing 2+0 saves as Iron Jaw, says Ziggy. How is this more choice when I'm in Citizen Sigmar with 3 artifacts? Grinaldi, it's not. I don't think it's more choice. I think it's specified choice. And if they've fucked up, or they've not given you good specified choices in your city, or your Legion of Chaos Ascendant army, as an example, if they don't have a good set of choices, it means that they can look at that design space and they can improve it next time. Now, I know that doesn't sit well for a long time, but I don't think just because your single artifact in your book is shitty or whatever it might be means that everyone should have to face ethereal Stonehorns for their whole life. Because it doesn't make much sense. My thoughts. Haley Bromley, how you doing? War Machine, do you think artifacts make it harder for Games Workshop to point a unit model accurately? Yes, I do. Jim Bruce, thanks for subscribing. Yeah, Angel, it allows for new faction-specific artifacts to be added in supplements, like Wrath the Everchosen, but that's more stuff to buy, of course. Yes, that's fine. Dan and Supervise, yes! Yes, really happy to see you in the shot. Almost like Stonehorns shouldn't ever have been magical ethereal ghost cows. Almost like that is the case. Couldn't this make it easier for Games Workshop to patch in artifacts to certain armies where it makes sense, i.e. Beast of Chaos or something? Yes, I think this does make it easier. So I think it's good. I think removing it is a positive. James, thoughts?
Yeah. I just think it's in its time. Like, I just think we're just at that point, aren't we, where I think like certain things need tidying up and minimizing, because also the books, like if you go back to like Stormcast book 1, there was hardly any rules in it, and now I think each book has its own rule, doesn't it, and its own sub factions. Like it makes it nicer to clean up all the the existential kind of stuff that you can add in or take out. Like, keep it as concise as possible. It's better for my head.
I do think it also means that you have less of those like moments where someone has found a janky realm artifact and they've applied it to an army. But I think that's also a good change. So what I'm trying to say is currently I've seen all the changes, core mechanics changes I'm really excited about. But when we go on to talk about points, I think Games Workshop have done a classic Games Workshop points update for Age of Sigmar, and they've just been cowards. I'm going to say it every time when they do it. They have been nothing but cowards. Like, there has been some monumentally uninspiring points changes. Marauders are up in points, though, James.
I know.
They're going to cost you 10 points more. How do you feel about
That's fine. They needed an increase. Probably 10's probably not enough, but
that? So, Andy Bryant, happy you're in the chat. He says, I think it's a poor choice to remove. Some factions need the assistance. But I don't think... Again, I think if you assist that faction, then and bring them up to medium, you assist them all, and that means the good faction get the bonuses as much as the poor factions do. And I don't think the artifacts are where the power is. Do you know what I mean? I don't think the artifact
I think for me that's the problem. Like, they were good. So, like, as someone that ran Bretonians like at 2 events for a laugh, the only thing that made them work was the ethereal amulet, but the problem was that then in one of the games at one of the events, I came against an ethereal stonehorn, which then meant I did nothing to it. So I think like it could buff an army that really shouldn't have been played, but then it just also equally buffed something that was stronger anyway. I think actually, so who was it? Sorry, that said that. Andy Bry. I think for me the problem is if some factions don't have good artifacts, it's now the time for them to deal with that.
Yes. Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. But, you know, you're all going to have your own opinions, and feel free to say them in the chat as well, but those are just mine. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Yeah.
And also there's a good... Granaldi made a good point, is maybe just point them. And if you just pointed them, then you could potentially pay for them in the right situations, right? That'd work.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I don't know. Like, I think like point. It's so hard, isn't it? You're already trying to fit so much in. I don't know. I think like you're already paying for an artifact, aren't you? So you're getting one, and then you're in theory paying for them in a battalion if you want another one. I think the flip of that is that some of the battalions are dumb pointed, aren't they?
In some cases. In some cases that's definitely true.
It's 50 points.
Yeah, and I agree with Dan on Supervisor in the chat, as I almost always do, in that I would have liked to have seen some sweeping points changes, and this edition, well, this GHB, it looks like they've done a classic won't tip the apple cart over. And there are some things that we could talk about here. Like, some things have gone up or down 10 points. Stormcast have got a few points reductions, but not enough that I think that they're going to have any impact on the game at all. Especially as they're a book that's maybe like 2 generations out of date now. If we take Freshheat Courts and Skaven as a generation before, and then if we take Sylvaneth, Tzeentch, not Sylvaneth at all, obviously. Sorry, Seraphon, Tzeentch, and the Lumineth as the newer generation of books. Stormcast are a year behind that completely, so they're generation 1, and I think we're in generation 3 of this set of books, really. I think it might be quite cool to actually put them into some tiers. I know that some people are talking about maybe trying out Shootcast as well and putting that back. Aether Wings have gone down some points, we've seen that. And obviously, I'm going to do some faction reactions where we actually get the points and we understand the game and we've looked at the missions, because there might be some core changes to the missions as well, which we haven't seen. So there's a lot of information to take in. But it does look like initially Games Workshop have done their classic cowardly points change. Which is a negative, I think. I think some of the stuff does not need a shake-up. So the Eidolons are always my example. The Eidolons have not gone down enough points that they're playable, and it's just embarrassing at this stage. It's just like another 10 points, and like you do yearly updates. 10 points isn't enough. Like, you need to like go a bit ham on these things. Those corn points. They've done very little with corn, which is just
Not bothered. It's boring.
I think it's an interesting book, right?
No, it's boring.
It
I
is.
can't. I've made my bed. I'm keeping to it.
Okay, all right, that's fine. But so I've seen that. So one of the big changes I saw, which I really liked, were acolytes. Not in a good way, not for the competitive scene, but acolytes going down in points for Skaven is a great bit. Because maybe some people just spend £100,000 on an acolyte army of Skaven, but there are some of those available. And the acolytes are a crazy price point now, which is fun. The Vortex, as I've just described already, I have no idea why that's gone down points. It just seems super weird to me. And then Beast of Chaos. I don't think anything has gone down. The Nighthaunt points are embarrassing. Yes, Lee Bromley. Yeah, they're rubbish.
Well, we're touching on Night because I've discussed this one this week. The Black Coach, which is kind of poo, not only didn't really go down enough, but isn't a hero. But the Black Coach that goes into Legions is a hero. What's that about?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
I mean, ignoring it, it's just stupid. But that's
Yeah, well, I think I think the Nighthaunt needed a massive boost in ways, but the problem is obviously you can integrate most of those into Legions of the Gash or Legion of Grief, so there's a huge problem there. They've shot themselves in the foot quite considerably, and that sucks. Nergal, let's talk about Nergal. Nergal is a great example of a terrible set of points changes. Yeah, right. Let me talk to you about Nergal. So Blight Kings were already a build. We saw in a TTS tournament recently, we saw a bunch of Blight Kings obviously run by Mark Meermouse, and Nergal have already had a boost in Wrath of the Everchosen with all of their sub-factions. So you think, okay, I'm into that. Nergal, let's get some points reductions. Let's get the Glockkin down. He doesn't have a DPR save, yeah? He's just sat there with a 4-up armor save. He's got almost no bonuses to cast, yeah? Let's get that Glockkin down in points. No. Yeah, you're like, okay, all right, fine, okay, no problem. Don't worry about the Glockkin. Let's talk other units in Nergal. Let's talk about Puskor Blight Lords. Let's get down them some points. Fast moving units. You know, they don't hit overly hard. They're quite elite. Let's get them down. Nah, fuck off, Rob. We're not bothered with that. Okay, get me some casters down. Let me do some fun stuff. Beast of Chaos. They're terrible. Bring them down a bit. Yeah. No. Okay, all right. But people were spamming 40 Blight Kings. No problem. We'll drop them 20 points so people can spam 50 Blight Kings. And you're like, sweet. That is terrible. Like, terrible design. Glockkin went down 40. Okay, nice. Still not enough. Still shit. So, yeah, just... but when you have Blight Kings go down 20 points, why? Thank you, everyone. I agree. There is a 60 Blight King build. 60 Blight Kings, which is what we're getting with... So Idoneth and Nergal now have this similar kind of comparative conversation where you're like, I don't want to just keep... No one wants to just keep spamming units, James. I don't know if you agree or don't agree.
I had 120 Marauders, but yeah, it's not as exciting, I don't think.
No,
to just have the same unit over and over again. But I am, just while we're talking, I have just looked, and 5 Blight Kings is 35 quid, so it's a good little money spinner.
But you know, if you reduce the points of everything, yeah, like if you take the shit thing and you reduce its points so it's at a points value that I will take it at, it's all a money spinner.
Yeah.
Like, as a good example, like, they must be like, oh, we've really crushed it with the Idoneth Deepkin. People really like them. They don't stop buying eels, yeah, like, all the time. Like, the guy in the marketing department's like, yeah, we've crushed it. And it's like, cool, how many Eidolons you sell? Like, yeah, we've not sold many of those, if I'm honest with you. Like, we could have sold more. It's like, okay. It's like, but people like eels, so maybe the next run of... The problem is also the self-reinforcement. So, like, if I was looking at sales, right, for what is good, yeah, if I was looking at the Idoneth Deepkin range, I was like, okay, so out of the Idoneth Deepkin range, if we look at sales over the past 3 years, people won't stop buying the eels. So when we make new models for the Idoneth Deepkin, we should definitely make them based on eels, like more fishy type things, like none of the wave guys, not really the thralls, none of that. People didn't really give a shit about that. Let's just make more of this particular thing. Yeah, because that's what people like. That's their Space Marine philosophy. That's their Stormcast philosophy. They're like, people keep buying Stormcast. Like, people bought shit tons of Sequitors. Let's just make another style of Sequitur. Release that fucking thing. Off we go. Does that make sense? It's like
Yeah.
an echo chamber of terrible sales. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's me. Now you can cast Godkin spells so that you can give Pink Horrors 1 extra wound. Nice. Save the turtles for sure. Thank you. Justice for turtles. I agree with that. The Eidolon is my favourite AOS sculpt. Stunning. Justice for the Eidolon. Well, justice for 60% of the Age of Sigmar range, I'm going to just say.
I think, but I still think Igenith's one of the weirdest ones because it was a brand new army where you looked at it and you were like, all of those look cool, and no one buys any of it other than like one bloody box of eels.
No, because I think we all still buy the stuff that we think's cool. I bet there's a whole bunch of people who've got I bet we've got there are Eidolons out there and turtles, and people are like, I'm going to try and make this work, and they've played a load of practice games and they've worked their balls off, and there are people who've taken turtles to tournaments and gone 3-2, and in some cases 4-1, and you know. There's people who've been pushing stuff around. Ben Spinetti's got an amazing shark-based army over in Australia. So there's people who love the army anyway, and they've sold it. It's just that there's no parity with the points and being able to apply them on the tabletop. And the Blight Kings one makes no sense. Like it makes no sense at all. Everyone buy Necrons and break the cycle. Shit. Back in the 90s, Terminators were the top selling unit in Games Workshop Management. Asked the design team to put Terminators in every 40k army. Rick said so. There you go. I'm not really sure. Here, Rob, you need to stand on. Yeah, it's not salty though. Like, it's just constructive, right? We all want to be a part of the game, and like, I'm bored of this conversation. We did this last year. Cowards. Give me some points changes, James, and Twitch chat that you'd like to see, which are drastic. I want to see a Lariel at 0 points. I've said it right now.
Like, so on a real thing for me, Chaos Warriors, 60 points for 5.
Because they're shit.
They're terrible, but I think it's 60 points for 5. You'd be like, okay, I'm getting 10 wounds for 60 points, and they should be able to stand there and live. So they're not going to be able to fight. They're not going to kill anything. But yeah, super cheap. I think just in Owen's comment, like loads of the stuff in that Beast of Chaos book, like Gorgons from last week, super good, but if you hit them first, they're dead. 100 points, just like nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think there's too much. There's almost too much fear, isn't there? Like generally, when we see points changes, they drop by 10 or 20.
It's not enough to affect change.
Well, so I always think for me, like, so I saw like some of the Stormcast stuff. So the Celestin Prime, I brought the day he came out. Like, that is a model I pre-ordered. It's an amazing model. It looks cool. Its lore's cool. I played Stormcast, and I think since I brought it, every points change, that model's dropped by 10 points. Or 20 points, or 10 points. And so you're like, cool, I've had this model for 5 years or whatever it's been, 4 years. And it's gone down less in points than 5 Liberators. So in 4 years, I can't get 5 extra Liberators in. And I think for me, that's the big thing, right? So it's like, cool. Celestin Prime, he's gone down 10 again. Okay, cool. So in 4 years, he's dropped by 80 points. It's nothing. It doesn't even get me a Stormcast hero, and that's where it's pointless.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things that I saw in this conversation as well, so I don't want to claim as my thought, is, and I do want to read out what everyone else has put in because it's really funny, is there is a point where you actually just get stuff cheap enough. When we talked to Joel talking about Beasts of Chaos, he's just like, I just take as much Beasts of Chaos units as I can because they're cheap, so eventually I just out-wound you. Although the Blight Kings list that I've seen is 250 wounds with a 4-up save, and it can have a 5-up DPR, yeah, right? And it's just bananas, and that's what you start with. So that's literally wounds for points at that stage, just taking up the board space. So some of the things that's being said in the chat is there is a point where you talk about why just keep lowering the price, like make a better war scroll. And I also saw someone say recently, and I really loved this idea, is just go to 3,000 points, but make the points more granular. So we would play with the same sized armies we play now, but you just make the points a bit more granular, right? Because you've got 50% extra room to work with. Does that make sense? Or even make them 4,000 points, whatever. And then, something, you've got more points. You still play a 2,000 point game in our money now, but you have more points to work with. So you can be a bit more granular with the points changes, which I think is good. All right, so in the chat, why are Blood Warriors 100 points for 5? It's a great question. The answer is...
They're corn. Doesn't matter.
No one knows. Well, no, that's just a terrible price for them, though. Ghouls down to 80 points. Bloodletters at 80 points for 10. Okay. There's still some holdover about Bloodletters, but yeah, they're way worse than they once were. Tree Lord, 80 points. I agree with that. A Tree Lord, a behemoth that's shit. Yeah, 80 points. I'm in. Absolutely agreed. Because it already is filling up a behemoth slot as well. So every Tree Lord means one less Durthu, one less maybe a Lariel, who's 0 points also. More Crusher down to 400. Chaos Warriors 50 points for 10. Wow.
I love how annoyed people get when I mock corn. It makes it even better.
Fletcher Bomb wants Sons and Prime to come down to points, 250. Huskarl and Thundertusk. Let's talk about ogres. When you've got the Frostlord on Stonehorn, which is excellent, and I think it's pointed spot on personally. And then you've got the Thundertusk, which can come down points, definitely, because they do almost nothing. But let's talk about Gluttons. They need to come down points straight off the bat. Lead Belchers, they need to come down points. Iron Guts need to come down points. Man-Eaters are terrible.
Man-Eaters, 10 points.
No, not 10 points.
Just get them in. Get them in your army. You can have one set of
one unit of Man-Eaters for 10 points. Yeah, okay, I'll take that. Yeah. Are we getting a point now where we can't keep going lower? Grimdan, that we talked about that, so thank you. Chaos Chariot, 70 points. I'm not sure about that, but maybe. Also, Kedro, thanks for the message, Angel. Storm Vermin to make a clan Verminer so you can have people play the clan as much as Pestilence or Gut Runners for Eshin. Yeah, Storm Vermin, definitely. I think they did come down in this one. I think they came down. So I think that's good as well. Warden King down to 110 points. I would drop most of the Dispossessed by 20 points. Did anyone else notice there's only 3 triumphs now? Maybe slight indirect nerf to KO. I did notice that. Isn't there 3 inside the core book and 3 inside the last GHB? So maybe they're just carrying them through.
I'm fully on board with Ziggy 1982, who's dropped Carrick Acolytes to 80 points. Great. Do that. Love those models. Get them on the table.
Yeah. Anyway, so when the actual points come out next week, we will talk about the points in detail, and we will go through. But it does look like Games Workshop have done. I am still got a lot of hope for those digital PDFs. I want you guys to know that. I'm still really excited to hope that they pull it out of the bag. I feel like they've been doing. No, I can't agree with that statement. I don't think that they've been doing a better job recently. That's bullshit. I want to tell you that they have, but we live in a wild world where they'll just, like Darren said on Twitter earlier, ours is not to reason why. Ours is but to push models forward that die. That's all we got. That's it. Yeah. that's sometimes we just got to live that life. But we'll talk more about that later. But it's looking interesting at least, and I can't wait to see the battle plans. Okay, James and Twitch chat, you got any final thoughts on that before we move on?
I think it's just going to continue what you said, isn't it? I think unless that PDF that comes out after and messes with them all is good, then there's just not enough to it. And actually, I have to say, I don't know about other people. So this is the first year since the General's Handbook released I haven't brought the Fancy Edition. Okay,
why not?
Because I just was like, I don't really want the extras. The cards are the only thing I ever use. The battle plan cards are probably the only thing I take out of the book. And then I think it's such a mess this year, and I know that's not really their fault with the print and then COVID and blah blah blah. And I just went on and I was like, right, it's 45 quid for that fancy copy. And I know that I'm going to have a piece of paper that I slot inside with changes. I thought, you know what? I'm gonna be more Nathan. So I brought the digital edition for a tenner or 12 quid or whatever.
It's cheaper, isn't it? Thank you, Shorty, Year of Shorty, for subscribing. By the way, welcome to the Grok Gang, or not welcome back to the Grok Gang. Yes. Also, the digital. I'm thinking of going digital on the app, but I've spent so much money on the iTunes books. I wish there was a way to translate over.
I don't.
Also,
Yeah, I
go
don't.
on.
I don't know if it matters. So I don't think I even brought it on the app. I just brought it through the Warhammer website. So I've probably just got it as a PDF. But I was just like, well, I've got a tablet that's coming to events. I brought a battery pack that I carry around everywhere, and I just think like it's £12. It auto updates instead of me having a book and a piece of paper. And also, and this is probably super lame to most people, and you'll all laugh, I'm so sick of like every year being like, cool, here's a bunch of books I need to recycle.
Yes, yeah, it's true. It's true. I think with the 40k app, I'm almost certain we'll see an Age of Sigmar variant as well, where later on, if you buy a paper book, you will get like a digital. That's what they do for 40k. If you buy a paper book, then you get a digital code so you can get it digitally on the app. I really hope to see that going forward as well. And I might join you, James. I might get the GHB on the app, actually. Now you've said it. I might just do that. I'm a little bit. Sometimes, I just don't trust them overly much because they've had apps before and they've closed them down. So I'm a little bit concerned that my money might just
Yeah,
vanish one day.
I think for me the biggest thing with the handbook is, isn't it? It's a year on year book that I recycle at the end of every year. I looked and I was like, I've brought every one of these special editions. It's 45 quid. I went on the website and I went to click it and I was like, what's the price difference between the fancy one and the standard one? I was like, oh my god, it's 45 quid to 20 quid. Then I can buy the standard one from other independent stores. So it's like £16. I was like, geez, that's a lot of money. Like 45 to 6, that's £30. and then I was like, ebook, because they're about to send me a piece of paper that changes the whole book anyway. 11, fine, buy it.
Uh, yeah. Maybe I'll make the digital. Actually, you got me thinking now. I'm like, am I just going to go for the digital version? There's also the real big question as well, I think, and this is really important, about whether or not people get to play overly much at the minute. But, I mean, that's a Games Workshop thing, not an us thing. And obviously, COVID is still a thing out there in the world.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Also, how many times do you get the General's Handbook out?
Yeah, well, actually, that's the other point as well. Because it's their IP. Like, so one of the things we almost always do on the other Wargamer, as soon as we get the GHB, John will just redesign the map so it makes more sense. So when I'm doing presentation or I'm doing a show, I show a better version of a map every time. We did that last year as well. And then we just post it up. And then when we do the the battle plan review show, we just like, there's the map, and it makes more sense.
Yeah.
I would also pay to have those as physical cards. Better, well-designed maps, and I want Games Workshop to have that. And just like, I feel like they miss a giant trick by not doing their job well enough. That
Well,
impacts me as a gamer. Like objective markers. If only there was some way that they could do good objective markers, and we're like, no, they can't. So we did one, right?
yeah, I think, but that's the thing, isn't it? So, you know, for me, that was the big thing. Like, that's the only reason I brought the General's Handbook for the fancy edition for the last 3 years or whatever it's been, is for those cards, and they are super useful. However, I don't think my General's Handbook then gets open, because the only reason you actually open it is to go to those, 12 pages. So instead, I just basically left that at home and took a deck of cards. So this year, I was like, sod it, I'll buy it digital. I'll take a tablet. I've got it on my phone. I've got it on a tablet. If I go to an event, I can be like, oh, we're setting up the board. I'll look on my phone. There's my tablet. Sorted.
Yeah, it's good. It's a much better. Lee's asking what the chances are of us doing something like that, and it would just super break IP. Like there's no chance of us doing that and putting like missions onto cards. But that's what I'd want. I just like, if they said battle plans on a deck of A4 cards and you could buy them. Yeah, I'd buy them.
Yeah, I'd literally I'd buy them tomorrow. If they just said, here's I don't know how many there is anymore. But if here's however many battle plans, 12 quid. Great.
Yeah, like you'd have that in a heartbeat from me, because I do think that sometimes when you do have the thing on your iPad, it's a little bit. But that's why I always encourage people to get off book, gentlemen and ladies. I didn't buy last year's GHB because I ended up only buying the game book. Yeah, and also they bought the GHB out and then the gaming book out which was like, and the gaming book didn't have the realm art. And it doesn't matter. We can talk
But
about
it's
this
weird, right? So I'm just let's just because why? So then, like, I know loads of people that brought the handbook, then the gaming book, and then this year it's like, oh, there's another General's handbook. Wouldn't you have been like, well, we made a handbook, then we realized we could make it better, smaller, more compact, and people brought that. So then, wouldn't this General's handbook? They've been like, actually, we're just going to release a new playbook every year.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Anyway,
No.
any whoosie. Yeah, so we'll talk about the proper points when we get when we talk about those later, like on the show. So James, yesterday, obviously, I put out all of the information for the Super Series, which is exciting. And Twitch chat, if you guys haven't seen it, obviously you can go onto the tsportsnetwork.com and you can go and look at the Super Series link, which is all up there. Talking about trying to flog an idea. And also, I'm not. How about actually updating the core rules with all the FAQs? Yes, I agree with that 100%. We put the Super Series out. What was your reaction? Now, you obviously were super clued in. You've been a huge part of the process, as well as most of the Honest Wargamer hosts. So you knew what was happening. But what did you think about the us putting it out there in the world?
Yeah. I guess it's it's a weird one, isn't it? Because I guess I've seen so much of it building up to where it got to, and I know how much work went into it. But actually, hilariously, so as the release show, or whatever you want to call it, the launch happened, I was actually playing. So I was playing a game in the garden, and we kind of stopped, put the TV on, cast to the TV, and watched it with a friend who knew nothing about it. And it was cool because I got to kind of watch stuff that I kind of seen bits of with someone who obviously didn't know anything about it, and that was quite cool because I got to see his impression too. So just quickly, sorry Ziggy, I've seen your question in the chat. The link is to this T Sports Network website, which is the Super Series is part of.
I think he was being sarcastic because you posted it 4 times.
Well, it just needed to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll post it more. It was really cool. It was cool to see it. It's cool to see like all the work that I know you've put into it kind of come to fruition. And then I guess the exciting bit for me was because I'd seen it loads. So like I'd seen some, versions of the video that went out, and it was quite fun to then kind of watch the finished, polished version with someone who hadn't seen it. And then I guess the final bit, kind of for me that I thought was super cool was like seeing it and then kind of seeing the conversation that happened in WhatsApp chats that I'm in, and people being like, "Oh, what's this? Or do you know what this is? You do stuff on the show. Oh," and then just seeing people kind of going crazy, like, "Oh, what would I ban? Oh, how would I ban it? How does that work? Oh, I want to ban something. Oh my God, imagine you can ruin this army." And I was like, "This is cool. Like, this is everything we've talked about for months."
Yeah. So the thing for me that kind of took me by surprise was just how quickly people were starting asking those questions that they immediately needed to know the answer to. So they're like, oh, if you ban these battle line units, it wrecks the army. You can't do it. Ah! I was like, oh no. So like, that was an interesting one for me, and was fun. It was also nerve wracking as well. Go on.
I'm super concerned that you didn't expect that. And that's all that happens with any Warhammer release. Like it's like, oh, Archaon's got this ability where he can re-roll a priority roll, internet explodes.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can ban him. And you didn't expect the internet to explode.
Yeah, Vagilis, yeah, you've nailed it there. That's a great pick. Yeah, so if you guys haven't heard of it yet or seen any of it, and if you have, I'm sorry that we're going to talk about it, but I thought instead of talking about maybe the core elements of it, I could actually talk, and James, you've done some live coverage with me, I could talk about where it's come from, because that's been an Honest Wargamer journey more than it has been the T-Sports Network stuff. And is really valuable, because I think this is only really a conversation we can often have on the Honest Wargamer, because some of it's a hard conversation to have, right? And I think it'd be fun to explore some of those themes and talk them through if you are interested. Who will be the floor correspondents for the Super Series? Well, there's going to be loads. Nikos is in the chat. Will be one. I'm sure James is going to turn up. I know loads of Benjamin, Darren, loads of the guys we've had on the show, and we hopefully will get more people on the show. To give you some quick top level of what it is, it's going to be a live, real human being tournament, COVID permitting, happening in England, actually happening in Nottingham. So I can announce now. So this is an exclusive to my own show. Weird, is that we have a venue in Nottingham. And the really exciting part about that, we were really, really worried that we weren't going to find a venue that we could afford to rent permanently, so that we could have all the cameras and all the equipment and all the tables and all the things set up on a regular basis. So now we found a venue that we definitely can't afford regularly. We're just going to hope it goes really well. Sign the deal and just hope it goes really well is the plan. James, it's a bit concerning because I might just move out of my house and start sleeping on your sofa if it goes terribly.
Fine.
Yeah.
There's two. I can sit on the other one.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's not Warhammer World, but it is in Nottingham, everyone, which is cool. So it's going to be a custom venue with 4 tables that it requires. Well, there's 4 or 5 tables it requires to actually run a Super Series, because it's teams of 4 playing against each other, and the commentary booth and the tech and all the other stuff as well, which is really fun. Nathan and me will be doing the actual physical graph to get the venue ready, which will be some exciting The Honest Wargamer videos if you guys want to come and check those out with us at some point.
I can't wait to see you do manual labour.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh my god, I wish it was Rock City.
Yeah, that would be great.
Idea, Primark.
That would be great. I'll talk to George, who owns Roxy. Anyway, so that's the cool thing, that we're going to have an actual space that people can come to, and it does mean that people can prep, and there'll be a timeline out eventually and those other things. But the top-down view of it is it's a team format where 2 teams. Well, no, so a certain number of teams will play through in a knockout tournament. So let's say James had a team and I had a team and we got matched up. We would play each other. Let's say James' team's won. He would go through to the next bracket of the Super Series until eventually there's a single winner. But it'll happen over the course of weeks, as opposed to an event which just happens at a weekend. And I think that'll probably be the first thing to touch on why we're doing that. And James, I think you've got some really good insight into this as well, because you've been part of me when we do the live coverage, and I would love to know what everyone else feels, especially in the Twitch chat, because it's the first time I get to talk to loads of people about it, which is really cool for me, so thanks for being here. Is sometimes when there's an event, there's loads of hype the week before, there's the event, and then there's the day after, and then you're just done. And it's a lot of work for just a very small event, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really interesting. So, like, having watched the stream before helping, and then helping, like, the amount of prep and travel and setup and work that goes into, like, making the coverage decent, I think is really hard. And so, yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? I think it's interesting for me from that sense to know that, like, getting that right is so important to you as well.
Yeah, it's really important, but I also feel like because the event is transitory and the information is transitory, like, and this is really important. Like, obviously we've started doing our multi-table coverage, right? Like earlier on in the year, but one of the things that we would do is we would miss out on all those cool other stories, which is why we had people like Chucklebutty, and we had people like Owen, like, going out into the field, and Donal. Although I think probably the crowd didn't want Donal to go into the crowd as much as the audience wanted Donal to go into the crowd. So
he was my favourite.
Yeah, he was my favourite too. So I feel like there's going to be more storyline, because when we see a team play over, like, so let's say mine and James's team would play. They play on a single day, but they play 3 rounds. So there's a kind of continual story there where we've seen, let's say, James is playing and he's playing with Miles, a guy from Scribes of War, and we see like James win his game and Miles lose his game. When we go into round two, we've seen James and Miles play again as well as the rest of his teammates, but now Miles is playing someone else and James is playing someone else, and it's like, like, can James carry through his second win? Like what, there's so much, like, you get to follow along with the people, which is a little bit more exciting. And we tried that out last year at Sheffield Slaughter with Nick, where we had Nick on his own table at Sheffield Slaughter, and we just followed Nick's games through the course of the weekend. And I thought that was a great storytelling device, because you want to follow. Sometimes you just want to follow the one guy, right? Like as they travel through the tournament.
Yeah, and I think it's super important. Like, people like to see their own faction or army as well, don't they? Because it's a good way of learning.
Yes.
So I think that's important too. Like, if I can watch, so if I'm in a team and Mars is in a team, but I'm playing Stormcast and he's playing Skaven, and I'm Ziggy, I'm picking his name out of the chat, who's at home, and he's a Skaven player, and he's like, why the hell did he take that list? And then you watch it, you could be like, oh, do you know what? I'll just watch him 3 times, because he's gonna play Death, and then he's playing Chaos, and then he's playing Seraphon, and actually now I've learned 3 different playstyles for the same army in 3 different battle plans. Like, it's great.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we haven't announced yet, actually, is that there'll be 3 rounds on a single day, but all of the teams will play 1 battle plan each through the day. Yeah, so I didn't explain that very well. Effectively, let's say round 1, everyone plays focal points. Round 2, everyone plays, let's say, Star Strike. Round 3, everyone plays X. One of the things that we might put into place is we might just let people, like, on Patreon or something just vote and just fucking pick one, like, because that could be fun. And I want to try and get that crowd interaction, right? We're waiting to see the GHB whether or not we include realms. That's going to be a thing. But I love the idea that on round 3 we're going to see the guy who's won 2 games. Can he go 3-0? But I like the guy that also has lost 2. Yeah, I was like, can we see him win 1? Come on! Like, we're rooting for him at this stage, and there's some emotional drag there, which is cool. So one of the other things, James, that I think you might be more interested in than maybe some other people is Penguin 2000 for the feather. Is we're going to make people name at least their characters.
Amazing.
Tell me how you feel about that, because that's something.
It's the future.
It is the future.
If it's not in the actual rule book, the year after, I'm going to be really annoyed. Age of Sigmar 3.0, all characters must be named.
Agreed. That's because. So while the Super Series is definitely designed to be a competitive event, I think it's a really cold heart that doesn't sometimes. And if Rogrex is still in the chat, like even Tom is emotionally connected to the story. Yeah, and who doesn't want there to be some tale? Like, if there's a giant, if there's a gargant running around, I want him to be named. Yeah. And I want us to kind of emotionally invest a little bit. Otherwise, it's just playing pieces. And there's some really cool story that you can do with just playing pieces. But do you ever miss that at an event? Because, James, obviously, we were there at an event when we just started talking for a good 15 to 20 minutes about a certain cannon crew.
Yep, they were important. They all faced the wrong way.
Yeah, but people liked it.
Yeah, because I think, but that's it, right? Like, I think, so I know, like, me and you did a couple of tabletop simulator events, and loads of people at the time would be like, is it good? Can I get into it? But for me, like, part of the attachment to your army is the fact, or at least for me, is like, I've built the buggers. Like, if I take those Lumineth horses into a game, I'm going to be like, clean the mole line off your ass. Took an hour. Each one of you took an hour to build. So, like, there's an attachment to it, isn't there? Like, almost inside you, where you're like, I worked on this, I built it, I painted it, I based it. Like, all of that matters. So I think, like, then as a player or a hobbyist, you understand that attachment. So then when on a sheet they're like, oh, this is my Gargant, but his name's Charlie. There's way more attachment to Charlie than there is to Gargant. And I don't know if he's still in chat, but I think actually Lee Bromley is a great, like, is a great person to talk to like narrative characters about, because he does it so well when he gets into
He
it.
does. So Speckles is just in the chat. Also, big love to Speckles in the chat. And he's got Phil and Lil, his two Good Kings on Terrorgeist.
Yep.
That's what he calls them, and they run around. He's like, "Oh, you've killed Phil. I'm gutted." Yeah, all right. Like, and it's a fun experience for me. Not obviously playing his Flesh Eater course, but when he talks about them, they feel alive, and I think that's really fun. I'm going to pause this conversation now because Scrunty Hugh has got a really important message, which I want to read out. Which is, my wife played her first game of AOS last night. We're both calling our models by their given names by the end of the game. It helped massively to get involved in the game. She wants to play again. Actually, it turns out it was on message and it was part of the story. So thanks, Scrunty Hugh. Also awesome that he's got his wife playing. That's rad. I refer to my heroes by their names instead of title. Sometimes it confuses my opponent. Yep. I think that's rad. I think that's fun.
There is a question that someone typed in the chat that I've highlighted.
Yeah.
Because you might have missed it, and it's important.
What is it?
But you might not want to answer it yet. So Vangelis asked a question. So he's put, I'm super excited for it, but sad that it would be nigh on impossible for me to participate from Canada. However, I'd love to watch.
Yeah, well, it depends where he's based in Canada, because he might be right. He might be in the smoky woods of a backfield. But the intent of the Super Series is that it's a gaming format and just not a tournament that we do here. So obviously we will be running a Super Series here in England, specifically England. And the reason I say that is because the intent is that there will be an Irish and a Scottish, maybe a Welsh, French, German, Swedish, Australian, Canadian, American Super Series. And where those countries are too spread out, like Australia or Sweden even, because that's more spread out than you might think, then we're going to ask people to set up regional Super Series and end up with regional champions. And then those regional champions can play each other, and then you can end up with a national champion, which is really fun. Now, the first Super Series that we're going to run in the UK, I don't want to spoil it because that announcement comes out sometime next week. Sorry, not in the UK, in England, will be fairly limited, and it is kind of an open beta. But our plan is, and a timeline, which again, some of you don't know right now, is that for January, February time next year, so over the next 6 months, our plan is to get everyone on board. Just be like, do you like what this is? I've had some really interesting feedback about the ban phase at the moment. And so I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's really exciting because if we can set these up in different places, everyone in the world will be playing the same sort of style of game. And also they're different to singles events. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as well. Is because we travel to tons of singles events, James, don't we? When we do the coverage. And they vary in quality. And they also vary in our ability to tell stories. That's really important. But they also just vary. And that's great. I love that variety. But I also think singles events have always had a foot in two camps. They're like, we're a competition. And it's like, okay. It's like, but only like 20% want to win. It's like, okay. And the other 80% think those 20% are dickheads. It's like, okay, this is a super weird setup for an event. I'm very confused. Yeah? Like when we were at Sheffield Slaughter and then you were walking around like, oh, I'm in the D band or whatever, tier D. Yep. Yeah?
Owen Jackson's tier 9. That's me.
Yes. Year of the Shorty, the Toronto Super Series. Yes. Now you're getting it. So when you've got like a large population centre, like you do in London, for instance, like eventually we might just have the England Super Series. We might end up with like the London one, and we might end up with some regional ones. Obviously, we have to get it started, and so some people are like running right ahead, and they're like, "I want to do one where I am," and I'm like, "Amazing, that's cool." But also, I feel like we need to like hone in on it and perfect it. So I put it out into the wild, and can I talk about something that's just happened with the ban phase stuff, James?
Yeah.
So one of the things that occurred was I put out the kind of system for the bans, and which I put as being you go, I go. So 5 bans each. James, you ban, I ban. You can see all these articles on the T Sports Network website, which I'll include the link below. So I go, you go, I go. Like so, just one each. But the idea came, and then I was like, who goes first? And I was like, well, I'm not doing a roll-off live on air. That would just be fucking terrible TV. And I was like, okay, what do I want to achieve? One of the things that I'd like to achieve is I want to get new people to play competitively, and also I would like to encourage younger people to play competitively. And my reasoning for the younger people is that I think do you know what I mean? You go looking for a younger person now, and so I put that whoever had the youngest person on the team got to go first. Quite naively, I was like, oh, that's fine. That's kind of nice. I'm trying to achieve a result there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then straight away on Twitter, someone's like, do you know what I'll do? I'm going to start cruising schoolyards for kids. And I was like, no. I don't want you to do that at all. That's a terrible decision.
Ban that person from playing.
Yeah.
They are banned.
They are banned. Yeah, definitely. And also, it doesn't really fit in the theme with everything else, right? It doesn't fit in with the theme that it's a sport and it should be a little bit more thoughted out. Where if you do something like League, what you generally tend to end up with is the first team gets to ban one, and then the next team gets to ban two. So there's a bit of a thing. There is also, by the way, an advantage to you go, I go, in that I get the first choice, but you get the last choice.
Yep.
So you get to get the very first ban in, but I also get to get the last one in, which might be the clincher. But there might be... So the point is I put the pack out, well, not the pack out, some of the ideas out yesterday, and people have already given me some good feedback. So before we put the proper finalised pack out, I am doing some thoughts about how to run it, what to do exactly. And I think running the first one in England in our own venue is going to be really, really important, because we're going to be able to hammer home all of the problems that we might come up against. I spent a year and a half thinking about it. I think there's some issues that we've solved already. But so anyway, yeah. Got any thoughts? I'd love to know what you think, so I don't keep talking forever. Am I muted?
No, you're good. I was kind of just giving the Twitch chat chance. There's a load of questions, so I'm just trying to work my way through to try and give you some of the best ones, rather than me just asking you questions.
Okay.
So I think quite an important one that I was about to reply to, but maybe actually it's better if you do, was... Oh, no. People are talking too fast. Oh, someone had a good idea. So CBD said whoever has the oldest battle tome has first choice of ban. I thought it was quite interesting.
That is interesting.
And then Glurak88 has asked, so how would a group from a local gaming group go about entering?
Well, it depends where they're based. So effectively, the way I have it envisioned as working is, and there's an article going up tomorrow about teams, which I'm hoping, and there's an article going up later on in the week about partners and Super Series around. But the concept is, if you're part of a local gaming group, depending on where you're based, you would find out whoever the partner is that's running the Super Series in your region, and then you would go through that process. But the way it works is you have partners, and you have coaches, and then you have teams. And the coaches select the teams, and then the partners select the coaches. Now, that's only initially. After that, there will be processes and there will be qualifiers where, let's say you're just a group of ne'er-do-wells that no one's ever heard of before. You're young bucks, renegades with an eye on the prize. Yeah. You can enter a qualifying tournament and then qualify to be part of a Super Series. So there's a pathway. The reason that I think the coach part is really important for developing teams is because what I would like to create is ways for people to learn to play better, and also have coaches who are dedicated to helping their groups. I think of people like Nick Thompson, any of the guys down in the South London Legion. I think about people who I know all around the world who work really, really hard in developing their local community and teaching people and helping people get better at games. Yeah, and I feel those people fit into that coach role really, really well. And then they can help hone better teams. As it gets more serious, you get on that more cutting edge, the coach role becomes a little bit different. So you've got people helping people get better, but then later on you've got those coaches on that razor edge. Maybe they provide armies for free for the players because they run a really big gaming store, or maybe they provide a training space for the players to play really well and practice. But that benefits all of us as a community because we end up with better games, which is cool. Better tactics, which is cool. We might end up with a better game because they might be able to stress test the fuck out of the game, and then Games Workshop have to pay attention and do some stuff. So there's a really exciting kind of like process of skill and effort that would go in. But that's meant to solve a problem, which most of these things that have been put in place are to solve problems that I've seen and that I think that we could work on as a community to do better at. And one of those problems is nepotism. You know, like how do I get as part of that team? Like James, if you wanted to start a team tomorrow, how would you start your team?
For the Super Series or just a team?
Just a team, let's just say. But let's
So
also
I
say,
think so I think for like just a team, like my thing is, and I think so. I watched a show the other day, and I can't remember his name that you were talking to, Tony Moore.
hmm
I watched the Tony Moore show, and I thought his was really interesting. So recently, when we did the WS10, so the Midlands team event, it was Midlands clubs versus Midlands clubs. Um, one of the things we discussed was like when we were putting a team together. So me and Miles had a chat about it, and one of the big things was like, right, so we're going to play, and we want it to be as laid back as possible because though we think we can both play Warhammer averagely, we also know that like neither of us are very stressy and don't like stress, and we just want to go roll some dice. So I think that's quite important, and it was interesting to listen to Tony the other day talk about like the relaxed kind of a like when they choose the team, they can't just be the best player who plays on their own in isolation because actually it matters. And I think that already that kind of rule that's in team tournaments that you can't all have the same unit or you can't produce the same unit or model on more than one team is really important. So I think when you look at that and then you go, oh, okay, and bans matter. So let's say I've got a huge Idoneth Deepkin army, but I know I'm playing something else, but someone else in the team's playing Idoneth, but they might not have all of the models. I think that there's a benefit to all of those being able to kind of back each other up. But I also think like teams, I think this is a bit Americanized now, but like team spirit's really important because Warhammer's long. um, You know what I mean? Like so, and as a good example, I think I did that team tournament, which I think was the first Games Workshop official one at Warhammer World, January 2019, I think it was.
Okay, yeah.
Uh, and it was, I think we started at 9 and we finished at 10 to 10,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was
So
the longest amount of Warhammer I've ever played. And honestly, by the halfway through the last game, I was like, my brain has gone like it. And I was next to a friend of mine, Rob Nixon, who is super tight on rules. And there was just a point where I was like, I don't know what I'm rolling. And he was like, threes, twos. Like, there's not that much left. He's like, this. Here's like, just throw the war scroll cards that you don't need across the room. Like, get them in your bag. Just these two. You've got like 4 units left, and this is all that's there. Just those. Okay, and I think like that's super important, like being able to look at someone that you get on with, that that wants the best for the team, for you, blah blah blah, is super important. So I think for me, like that's super important in a team as well. So my team would be made up of, I guess, people I know that I can get on with, people I know I can rely on, people that I know that if I said to them, "Oh, I really want to take a Gaunt Summoner," so you can't, would be like, "Yeah, cool, I can work
but
with that."
did you walk away from that team tournament though? And this is the important question. Did you walk away from that team tournament understanding that you guys could have done better? Like, and as a team, if you'd have worked on it, there could have been some skill sets that you developed as a group. And if that had been coordinated by someone else, like not individually, like you had a team coach, you had meetings, you had talks, like you could have done a better job.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that was the thing. Like we made a team, and I won't even lie, like we didn't really practice, we didn't warm up. We had like a WhatsApp chat, but most of the time it was just like, "Oh, I haven't painted enough." And I think actually to me the kind of the idea of just having someone that keeps you on forms such an important aspect. And I think even like even painting, like painting an army for an event, which I'm pretty sure everyone in the chat has done, um, is quite hard and can be quite daunting. And even just having someone that's like, right, this is what your list looks like. These are the models you need. This is what you need to work through. To then kind of have to see you through that whole process would be super supportive and important. And then on the day, that same person is the person you look to where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and they can just be like, head back in the game, like think
But
about
can you,
it.
and then so now this is the key part, and this is what I'm hoping comes out of this conversation. Although I don't want to push the conversation that way. The year after or the next event, you still want the same 4 people, right?
Yes.
But of course you do. Because, so there's never a new way in for a new person into your little group of friends. And why would there be? It's your group of friends. That makes loads of sense, right? But a coach could be like, I don't think you pulled your weight, or actually there's a new kid, he's been working super hard, like he's got a new army, he wants to try it out, so we're going to put that in next time. And you'd be like, okay, that makes sense. So if you're like part of like a club, you could do inter-club tournaments to get the best team. You could do inter-club, like, you could base it on like, well, you're going to get a spot in the team because of this, if that makes sense. And like, that's the best team you put forward. And then, so that's cool for a club. That's cool for a group of players who want to do that. But if you go the other way, let's say you're a big dick, yeah? Right? Like, let's say you got money, you've got a venue, you've got sponsorship. You're like, I want the dick kickers. I want the super team, right? Now the real question is, if you're a gamer that's dedicated their life to play in the game, there's the opportunity that someone's going to be like, oh, I want you on my team, I want you on this. Now, the super team, as they're described, might not necessarily win the event. They might not take it out, right? But if you look at something like the South London Legion, which contains a fuck ton of players, right? They can produce maybe 2 or 3 quality teams. And if we look at people like Facehammer, they're a group of friends who are also on a national team and can do really well. If we look at the Just Play guys, that's a group of guys who traditionally do quite well, right? So there is these groups of people who they already have got like tournament level gamers. So asking a group of like friendly gamers from another area to create a group that can compete with them is quite tough and challenging. Whereas if you have a group of guys who can go, actually, South London Legion guy, I want you on my team. It's like, okay, yeah, but I pay for them. It's like, well, cool. I'm going to give you some money or an army or whatever it might be.
Yep.
You end up with an economy where player skill is more important than nepotism. And then you'll end up with coaches who hire people that work really well. So you'll have better... Does that make sense? So if you're someone who works really hard, gets on well with people in a team, and wants to do well, you'll end up on a team who will get to play. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris... but there's some feedback in the chat, which will be fun. So I haven't played a lot as a team sport. I think the nice thing about Warhammer is you're not looking to get picked to play. Sometimes you're not able to commit at such time. Now, I think that's also a good point, which is why qualified tournaments, are going to be really key. Because if you're like, do you know what? Cool. Like, maybe that coach doesn't like me or whatever, but there's some guy who's not a coach at the minute in the Super Series. He's like, okay, I reckon I can form a better team. I'm going to pick Chris. I'm going to pick this guy. I'm going to pick that other guy. And then they take that team and he, like, molds them and he, like, puts them in lycra and they do stairs, or like they paint really fast. I don't know what the sort of thing. Can I be the water boy for someone? Yeah. And then you end up with a cooler team, and then they go to a qualifying tournament. They win the qualifying tournament, or they qualify, whatever the process is there, and then they're in the Super Series. So you don't have to go down that route as well. You could do your own thing. Am I making sense?
Yeah, they had loads. I think it's interesting too, right? So another one is that, like, so when you talk about qualifying and those sorts of things, like, I don't think I've been to a Warhammer event and not met new people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the best things about it. So there's nothing to say you don't go with one team, make friends with another team, and have a little team smush where you change people around, is there? If it gets you a better end goal. I think, like, there's just so many layers to it in my head. That won't even develop until
we start doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing that we can do, right? Is put the best foot forward and try. And I'm operating a 100% open door policy on this. So there is some stuff that I'm trying to like release like bit by bit, just so you guys can kind of like absorb it and then be a part of it. But like, if anyone has any ideas, any thoughts, any suggestions, if you're part of a region, like, or somewhere in the world, and you think, yeah, we could put one out there. Like, I did a show last night, Party at the All Points. You guys should check it out. It's a podcast. Dayton and the guys. It was really fun talking to those guys, and they're based in Memphis and Canada. And they were like, I reckon we can put together a super series here, a little small one, and that'll be fun. But it gives people. I've had messages from guys in Denmark, Oz, all sorts of places. And people are like, if we wanted to run one here, could we? It's like, yeah, that's the point. It's the whole idea is to give you a direction to run something to end up with champions. And then that means that you get to get them to play against each other. And I'm into that. Fuck it, Rob. We already planning one for maybe this one.
Winner. There you go. There's the test team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So, like, can you see... I mean, there's so much more to talk about it. I don't know if you've got any questions, Twitch chat, or you've got any questions, James. Most of it has come from problems that I've seen at events, whether it be people misplaying rules. That's an issue. The same meta. Let's talk about AOS Six Nations. Let's talk about AOS Six Nations last year. Every fucking army with the same Flesh Eater Courts list. Me and Speckles talking. Speckles is like, guess what, Rob? Another corpse guy in this list, Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. And I'm like, yeah, I know Speckles. Ghoul Patrol. He's like, fucking Ghoul Patrol, Rob. I'm like, I can't wait. Like, it's just every time. And as the rage, yes. And it gets boring for us as commentators, but it must get boring for you guys as viewers. And I think the exciting thing about the ban phase, which we've showcased already, is that it breaks the meta up, but it adds a layer of tactics to the game. Like, so James, let's you and me. Let's do some ban phase stuff. Let's you and me. Let's play the ban phase as it is at the minute, although it might change up. So you go, I go. You go, okay. I go. Okay. James gets to start first. Now, you can't ban battle line units. No battle line units can be banned. Yeah? And once you've banned a unit from a book, you can't ban another unit from a book. There are some interesting examples, like Nagash, which is in the FAQ. There is an FAQ already written. So I've already thought this through. So if it does happen to weirdly come up in this situation, I'll talk about it. But go on. You get to go first.
Can I ban battle line units if, or just
yes,
no?
You can. Battle line units if it's completely fine.
Eels, have fun. I don't know.
So you can have all 5 of my bans. Well done. Let's go. Let's go play some Warhammer, baby.
Because I just think, like, actually, like, do you want to talk them through as we go?
Mm-hmm. Okay, tell me, why have you banned eels?
So if I ban, so I can't ban all eels, can I? So I'm going to ban attacking eels, whatever they're called, the ones that we always see, not the no-rend eels. Because I just think, like, they're so boring, and there's so many lists that are just them. So I instantly think then, as an Identity Deepkin player, you'd have to think outside the box, and we'd see some stuff we hadn't seen before from them.
Well, no. So currently the system works where you do the bans and then lists happen after.
Yeah.
And people aren't locked into armies. Now, a really cool thing that I discussed behind the scenes with Logan Sammer the other day was he thought that a really cool thing would be if people were locked into armies. Yeah, so like for instance, let's say I locked into Iron Thiepkin, you banned eels, now I'm fucked. But that's my own fault for taking an army that has 1 war scroll, right? Yeah. But that isn't the current situation because my core focus is I want every army to still be viable even under this system. I just want it. Yeah.
I think, but yeah, for me, like, so let's just say if you get someone who we know has played Eisenhower Deepkin for the last 3 years, and you're like, cool, eels. Get them off the table.
Yeah.
Is that really interesting?
Yeah. So like, let's say I've got Luke Morton in my team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Who we know plays eels all the time. Has won loads of tournaments. Every tournament he's played with them. So you've banned eels. Now Luke, like, is that my fault for bringing Luke along? Can Luke even play a different army? No one knows. No one fucking knows. I know Luke thinks he can. Yeah. But there's no evidence to suggest that. So now you've banned my star player, if you will, and his star unit.
Yeah.
Like okay. So my first ban would be. Let me think this through. What do I want to take? What do I want to take at the minute? Thinking about the game. So I would ban the Troglodon.
Okay.
Right.
Any reason?
So okay. So if we're talking it through, the reason I'd ban the Troglodon is because I actually want to bring Seraphon.
Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So you've answered. Speckles asked a question, and that was it answered.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to. I probably want someone to bring Seraphon because if
Yep.
Luke can't play with his easy push forward eels, I'm gonna have to give him another army that's really easy to push forward and play with, and Seraphon's that. Yeah. So I'm just one crutch to another, baby. That motherfucker could just limp over the line, no dramas. Yeah. So then you're up next.
Okay, I'm gonna ban Terrorgeists.
Okay. And is that because Speckles is also on my team?
Speckles is in the chat, so I just want to trigger him.
Okay, so let's also say Speckles is on my team. So you seem to be doing targeted bans to take out my players. Okay, that's fair enough. In which case, I would probably ban. Let me think it through. What is actually from that book? Skeleton Warriors. Because then I'd pivot Speckles into playing Legions of Nagash, yeah, with his Vampire Lord Zombie Dragon. I wouldn't make him continue to play FEC, yeah. So currently I'm reacting to your bans. You're targeting my players individually, and I'm trying to react to your bans. And I'm trying to make it so that I've got some safety for my guys to play into their other factions. Does that make sense? Obviously, I don't know who's on your team as well, right?
Yep.
So it's a bit out there. Yeah, go on then. Oh, yeah, that's me so far.
So I then ban.
Oh, wait, hold on. What did I pick?
What did you pick?
Yeah.
So you did Troglodyte, and then you banned Skeleton Warriors.
Yeah, I can't ban them. They're battle line. My own rules. Amazing. I ban.
There's a lot in that book.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of one of the shit ones that I'd want to ban. What is in? Can someone give me?
Zombies. Oh no, they're battle line.
Yeah, they're battle line. Well, so I
Just
want
ban,
Speckles to
like-
take direwolves. So
You-
Graveguard. It's okay. I'll ban Graveguard.
There you go.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, people. So I'll ban Graveguard because they suck anyway. Your turn.
So I then am gonna ban. So I think I'm gonna just try and be tactical about this now because we're.
Who else is my team?
in my
Nathan's
head.
on my team as well. Nathan's my fourth.
Okay, so I'm gonna ban. So then I'm gonna ban Shadow Warriors.
Oh, because you want to take Cities of Sigmar, so you don't want me to ban anything from that. Okay. All right. Okay.
So maybe I have a Cities player, but also that's a unit that we might not even own, but it can confuse you into thinking I've done that for a certain reason.
Yeah, but now I know. So I know the cities builds, right? Maybe you're taking Halahar. Maybe that's your plan, right?
But maybe not.
Maybe not. See, it's still really exciting, and I've still got a prep for next tournament. Okay, no problem. So let's think about me. Let's do some targeted attacks. So I am just going to ban Teclis because I know you're running Lumineth, right? Yeah, single tier. Fucking walk home, baby. I don't give a shit about you. Yeah. Teclis is a battle line and he can fuck off. Now, obviously, we've done no prep for this, but I reckon teams will do some fucking intense prep. Yeah, where they'll plan what four armies they're going to bring. They'll think what their four armies are going to bring. So anyway, yours is next. Go for it.
Okay. So then I'll ban. What haven't we banned from? So ban that and that. So I'll ban. Thanquol on Bone Ripper.
Oh, you're keeping Skaven safe. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Got Miles.
See, I don't mind that actually because I feel like magic dominance wise, I've still got Nagash available in Legions. I've still got Nagash available, which is cool. Yeah, you've not got Teclis anymore. I've still got Croak, so I'm laughing in that situation. So I'm developing magic dominance, which I'm all into. I would. And you're bringing Skaven and Cities potentially, and currently I'm not seeing tons of mortal wounds coming out of you, so I probably am going to go for Osiarchs at the minute as they currently stand, so Bone Reapers, and is what maybe I would play because it's just a fucking easy ass build. 4 crawlers, let's go. 2 crawlers, let's go. But I also want to. Well, I'm trying to think of the metagame now. This one gets like a little bit longer, right? And a little bit more intense. And I think I would ban war chanters
Okay.
because I don't want fast alpha combat. Yeah, I don't want that to be in my grill. I've like my armies aren't built for taking fast alpha combat, so that's what I'm banning out of the game. Your turn.
I'm gonna ban. This is sad because you've just said that. So I'm gonna ban blood crushers.
From Corn.
Yeah.
Ah, what the hell? What are you planning? Okay, well, none of us are playing slaves, so I'm going to ban the War Shrine, which I think affects slaves. No! Fuck, no! Change.
You banned it!
No!
You've locked it!
Mulligan! Mulligan! Bellicor! Because my plan now, I'm now working towards, I want Big Nagash playing, yeah? Right, I want Croak playing, and I don't want to get shut down by Bellicor. I feel like I've shut down your tech list, yeah,
Yep.
and I'm not going to see that in play. So I feel I've got all the characters and the big counters at Bellicor, so he's out. So fuck that guy. Your turn. Oh, wait, are we done 5? Yes, maybe. Oh, whatever. You guys get the idea. But I
Just
think
quick question, because it's actually interesting. Dudardé has asked, can you ban endless spells?
yes, that's actually a change as of the pack going out yesterday. Because people were asking me questions like, "Can you ban endless spells?" I was like, previously no, and I was like, actually, banning portals a big one. Yeah, so I've gone for yes. I've changed my mind. But I might change it back at the final pack. And I know that sounds a bit wishy-washy. It's just like maybe I'll just focus it on units for the initial bit. But I think it's a good question. Anyway, so fun, right? And then what would happen is that would happen, and then the teams would have 3 days to design their list with those bans in mind. But what's super cool is they do that in secret, and you guys, as the audience, we all get to speculate on what you would do with those 10 bans in effect. Like, what would you do? Like Twitch chat, you guys heard some of that. What would you bring, James? What would you? Did you have a sneaky plan there? You wanted to flip the script and bring something sneaky?
Yeah, I was just going to bring all bloodthirsters. I wasn't. Someone else was. I'm not touching that rubbish.
Play
I think
Legions of Asgard.
so. Like in my head, like then the Daughters of Cain would have gone out. So in theory, like in my head, Daughters of Cain, because the cities would throw you off. There probably wouldn't have even been a cities army in there in my head. But I feel like throwing a cities ban in would then make you be like, he's playing cities, he's banned those. What would the build be? And you'd almost have a team trying to counter pick something that isn't even going to happen.
Yeah,
So I think
and it's not as tight. So a better version of this, I think, or a more tactical version of this, is where we turn up with 4 armies that we know we're going to play. Yeah. And then you ban 1 unit out of that with some restrictions. So let's say, like, we had all us guys, and then you banned a unit from each one of those guys, and you just do 4. That'd be tighter, but problematically, I feel that you would see less variety of armies taken on the tabletop at an event. And what we really, really want for coverage, but also because it's really unique, is we want people to go really left field. So you banned, what Skaven unit did you ban?
Thanquol.
Thanquol, yeah. So I might think that you're bringing, I don't know, traditional Storm Fiends or Plague Monks, but maybe you're just going to flip the script and go Eshin. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also Storm Vermin are taking a cut in the new version, so maybe just loads of Storm Vermin backed up by bells.
Yes. So I think there's so yeah, it's bans before army choice, which does leave loads of options on the table still for people, and that's what I really really want to focus on. Is I want to give many, like, I don't want to yet focus the game more. Maybe that'll change as we do these in the future, but that'll be an audience, player, and organizer conversation. Because, like, it's what's best for the players, what's best for the audience. Those are the kind of things that are key. Like, what makes the most exciting coverage, and it isn't seeing the same army list all the time. It's not going to CanCon knowing Tzeentch are going to win the event, right?
Yeah.
And them doing it. Like, that's the kind of, like, that's the dick kicker. Who took out Sheffield Slaughter? Was it also Zinch? I can't
No,
remember now.
Deepkin, Link Morton.
Oh, of course. But didn't we also say that before the event happened?
Yeah.
Like, and and that does steal the drama away, right? Like, and you want that exciting, tense. So is this all assuming people have loads of armies? No, War Machine, but it is assuming that between a pool of 4 or 5 people, and that would be a coach's job, right? A coach's job would be to help organise people. But the thing that the key driving force of this is to make the tournament scene more interesting. It's more resistant to top meta picks. It makes it more fascinating and is more relatable to skill. Either that list writing skill, banning skill, or draw skill. You end up like if you, let's say you only play the one army and someone bans your unit so you can't play that army anymore. Okay, well, can you actually do well with a different army? That's a great question. You know, like that requires you to have skill as a gamer, not your one army being OP. And that's always annoying, right? Like, how good is someone or how OP are their armies? That's the real question.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, loads.
No, and it's not okay for the coach to be one of the 4 players. The coach has to be independent of the 4 players, which I think is good. I think it's valuable, right? Do it again here too. Yes, third me. We did the GHB talk. It's not all. It's not out yet, so we haven't done it. Let the audience choose the bands, vote premium rate, phone numbers. I'm into that. That works. Yeah. I definitely agree. It's interesting to throw some great curveballs into what will add to the fun. Booyah. Booyah. Also, there's tell you what, for that final, for the final between the two teams that won all their matches, that ban phase is going to be interesting because we'd have already seen like a few ban phases before for the teams, which is cool. All right, James. Well, thanks for talking to me today.
Pleasure, as always.
Yeah. There's loads more to talk about with this. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. If you've got any questions left.
I think I am tapped out of questions, but I'm more than happy to read any out if anyone has any. This interesting. I really like Chaos Spawn Wargaming. Just put loads of respect. If a player beat me with a fat middle army, then Nagash plus Petrifex.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, as right, I'm not sold on the ban format, but bans in general are a great idea. Okay. All right. Well, I'd love to know what your version of that would be. How many points cuts do Sylvaneth need not to be shit? Well, we talked about Tree Lords being 80 points and a free Lariel, so that should give you some indication of where we reckon they're at. Can fans vote to ban? Yeah, sorry, Speckles. No, that would be unfair. Can an organizer be a player? No. Organisers can't be players, and coaches can't be players either. Because obviously that would be super unfair, to remove yourself from the system. So organising and coaching is a support role in the structure, which is. Would you ever think about? I know, James, obviously you're going to help with the coverage and stuff. Would you think about being a coach? Do you think that would be something you'd be able to do, or do you know someone locally who you think would make a good coach, sort of thing?
I think almost weirdly, having done kind of coverage with you, that coaching's probably something I would do because I'm quite happy to sit and talk about Warhammer and like sit in an event and talk in Warhammer. I probably get as much out as I do from playing sometimes. So I don't think it's something I'd be against. And I think that's weird, right? Because the first bit of coverage I ever did with you, I was like, oh, it's weird going to an event and not playing. And then once you do it and you watch tons of games, you're like, oh, that wasn't that weird. I feel like I played more games than if I actually played.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting for people to take part and see like the hobby from a different side rather than just being over a table, maybe.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping for. And what I'm hoping for is there's so much more to talk about. Terrain, the rounds, there's so much more going on here, which I'm hoping you guys will enjoy. But I just want to say thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Twitch chat, Patreon, podcast, you guys who've supported me through the past 2 years. Some of you haven't known that you're actually supporting me creating this thing. Well, most of you haven't known that you helped me create and support this thing. And maybe some of you don't give a shit. The Honest Wargamer will be still itself. Like, we'll still do all the same shows that we do already. And then my plan is now some of this is off my plate, is that maybe to do more. like do some more, like investigate some other elements as well. I feel like the Honest Wargamer has been like the melting pot and the think tank because we've been able to have like really like constructive conversations as a group of people. Like I think that that's been really important. And then we've been able to highlight problems and talk about things, and then because of that, and because of the messages and feedback and support I've had from you guys, I've been able to push this in a direction which I think is a positive, and it'll only grow and do well because of everyone else. So if you think it's a shit idea, you should definitely let me know because I'd love to hear about it. Like I know that sounds like a negative, but like I want to know why, because if I can defeat the reason why, like if I can come up with a solution to destroy your why, then that's a good constructive bit of healthy news, right, James?
Yep.
You got any shit reasons it's shit? You don't want to do it? Too much? Too intense?
No, I really like the concept, and I do think like the one big thing is that I've been talking about it for so long with you that I almost feel like it's reached a point where like for some things to be ironed out, it's just got to be done.
Yes.
And I know me and you have discussed that, but we haven't discussed that probably openly with all the people that are in the chat. And I think that's a big thing now. Like, it needs to happen. People need to see it happen, and then people need to understand like how it works.
Yes.
In the sense of like you can see something on a piece of paper, can't you? And you can go, oh, that looks. Let's just go back to our general's handbook. Like, cool. Let's reduce this by 20 points, and then you put it into a list, and you're like, I'm not sure that was matters. And then you play it on the demo, and you're like, that really didn't matter. Like, I feel like this is the same thing. It's got to happen. We've got, and it's got to be looked at, and then it's you and it's the community kind of going, oh, we really like this. We're not sure about this, and that's how things evolve, right? And that's how we make the best kind of tournament scene going.
Yes, that's exactly the thing. And also, the other thing that I haven't touched on quite yet is I'm hoping it also does another thing, that it allows singles events to be a bit more free. Like a singles event doesn't have to be like, I have to be the dick kicking like event. They could just be like, we're going to make it so you could just create characters, bring them along, have a laugh, get drunk, enjoy yourself. Like, there probably will be someone. Does that make sense? You don't have to be tournament-y. So anything that move away from metagaming towards skill and tactics is great in my opinion, so look forward to see it. All right, sweet. Well, next week we won't be yammering on about it anymore, unless there are some questions. And I'm sorry for indulging myself to talk about it now, but I felt getting some of that information out would be quite useful. So, James, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who has joined us live. You guys are great. Thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. You guys are actually the reason the Super Series exists. So between Twitch subs and the Honest Wargamer Patreon, genuinely none of it would come about were it not for you guys. And being able to, because it's taken this long to get here. It's required like designing apps, websites, all sorts of shit I didn't want to be a part of or know. Lee Bromley, thanks for subscribing. But so yeah, it's been a pleasure. And podcasters, you count as well. You guys. So loads of love. All aboard the Super Series Hype Train. Yes, you can find all the links. See you later. Twitch chat. James, you got any shout outs before we go?
No, I don't think so. All good in the hood. Thanks to everyone. Oh, I do have a shout out. Wolf Priest Carl sent me a picture of his doggos. Big shout out.
Nice. nice. Big shout out to all the doggos. Steve Curtis's doggo. Just seen that one. That was nice.
Everyone just tweet me your doggos. Or pets. Any pets. Tweet me your pets. Great day.
I'd like to shout out Gozzy. And then see you later, guys. Have a great day.